What are the essential tools any home bartender needs? Well, let's get right to it. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and while I am fond of a glass of whiskey, I also enjoy making cocktails. So I put together this list of essential home bar tools. Whether you yourself want to get into the world of making cocktails or you're putting together a gift for someone in your life, these tools are sure to set you up for success. We're going to start with the absolute basics any home bartender is going to need, and first off we're going to look at our glassware. Now you can get very nice, very fancy glasses, and you can get lots of different types of glasses for different cocktails, but at a basic minimum what you need is a low wide glass like a rocks glass like this one, and a taller highball glass like this one here. These are going to be essential for serving things like old fashions, Long Island iced teas, Tom Collinses, mules, things like that, and these are just the basic glasses that you'll find in any shop, in any store, and they're just the essential glasses you need before you get into those martini glasses and those other fancier ones out there. Next you're going to need ice. Now you could use fridge ice. I've got an ice maker back here that I use for when I'm making lots of cocktails when I've got friends over, but I personally, for my own home bartender cocktails, I prefer this one here. This is a 6 tray of large rocks of ice, and it gives some very nice rocks of ice. I know the water went into here, it was clean, it was clear, it's not going to give me any problems, and it's very good for making cocktails because when you're shaking it around you can get a good head of foam with this large rock of ice. If you need smaller chunks you can smash it up with the back of a spoon very easily, and you can pour into a mixing glass, and you can really chill down a cocktail very effectively with these large rocks. I think they're pretty versatile, so if you're getting a present for someone, I'd suggest going with a large rocks tray. We're of course going to need something to measure out our spirits, and me personally, I find I prefer this 2.5 ounce or 75 ml measure. It's very useful because most cocktails you need, the maximum amount of ingredients you're going to be asked for is going to be 2 ounces, maybe 2.5 if you're using juices. So it's a very simple cocktail measure to use. You know you're not going to overspill. You know it's easy to walk around with, you're not going to spill. It also has a lot of fine graduations. So the bottom of it, that's a 7.5 ml measure. You've also got a 15 ml, 20 ml, all the way up through 15 ml increments. And it's very handy to use, very easy to kind of get you going. So many cocktails call for this. Well, they don't actually call for this exactly, they call for what's inside it. They call for juice, whether it's lemon, lime, orange, or anything like that. So you need a way to get the juice out of here and into your cocktail, and for that you can use a couple of different tools. Now I personally like this, it's a juice elbow. You just cut your fruit in half, pop it in there, squeeze it down, the juice comes out at the bottom. Very simple, very straightforward, especially if you're only making 1 or 2 cocktails. But if you're going to be making a lot more cocktails, something like this is also very handy. It's a classic juicer, most people will recognize this, just has a little glass on the bottom so you can capture all those juices. It'll also strain out a lot of the pulp up top, so if you're making a lot of cocktails and you don't want to be messing around with strainers or anything like that, this is easy to use. It's just a little bit more finicky to clean all the little bits. So if I'm only making 1 cocktail or 2 cocktails, I'll go for the juice elbow, very straightforward to clean. If I'm making a lot more, I go straight for this one here. So it depends on what you need. And lastly, we're going to need a tool. Now this is just a simple bar spoon, very handy. You're going to need this for a lot of cocktails. I do like a longer handle on my spoon, not so long it's kind of in the way, but a nice spoon like this, it's kind of weighted. You don't need to use your wrist as much, you can kind of move the spoon like this, very handy. It's just a nice spoon to use. You're going to need this if you want to make floats on cocktails, if you want to stir things like a mule or something like that, you want to stir an old fashioned. Very handy just to have a good quality spoon that you know is going to last you. This is also pretty durable, it's pretty heavy, so if I want to smash an ice cube I can just hit it once, it'll break that ice cube. All in all, you just need a good bar spoon and nothing that's too small. Once we get past the basics, we're going to need something to stir or shake cocktails. Now for shakers, there are a bunch of different styles on the market. I started off with this glass shaker here. It has like recipes and measures printed on the glass, has this little kind of strainer up top, very kind of basic, gets you going, gets you into the world. And then there's other ones like here, like the Japanese style shaker, which is just metal, a little bit cleaner, a little bit better, easier to kind of use than those glass shakers. But my personal preference for cocktail shakers is the Boston shaker, specifically the tin on tin Boston shaker, where you don't have a pint glass. So some versions of this will have a pint glass here, which I think can be a bit finicky. You can break it, you can definitely hit it too hard, you can break it. I personally like the tin on tin version because you're not going to break it, you can hit it on the ground, very easy to clean, and you can do a little bit of flair with it. You can throw them around like this and you're not going to worry about dropping it or breaking it. I think it gives a great seal. When you smack it together, you get a really good seal and you can really just shake it away. You don't need to worry about the kind of lid flying off it like you would if you had a glass one, because the two sides of this are metal, so they contract and they give you a good seal and very easy to open. Just hit it across, very good. This is actually a Mezclar shaker tin. I've had it for years. It's very handy because the top and the bottom of it here are actually kind of insulated, like it's a second layer. So if you're making lots of cocktails, you can hold it like this, you can shake it away, and you're actually not going to be touching the cold kind of main tin area directly. So you can shake it away, you can shake it away constantly. Your hands aren't going to get too cold, especially handy if you're making lots of cocktails at home. So this is one I'd recommend, the tin on tin Boston shaker. Just very versatile, very handy, and just kind of a good cocktail shaker that will last you for years. Next, we've got our mixing glass, and there's no real right or wrong mixing glass. It's just whichever one you like, as long as it is sturdy. So you want a mixing glass that's kind of nice and thick, nice, and so if you hit it with a spoon, you hit it with your jigger, you're not going to be worried about it getting cracks in the top, anything like that. A nice sturdy mixing glass is good for so many cocktails that don't require shaking, don't require being served on ice, but you still need to cool them down. This is also where our bar spoon comes back into it, because if you get a nice long bar spoon, you can stir pretty easily, but if you have maybe like a shorter spoon like this, you're going to end up sticking your hand in. It's a little bit more awkward, a little more difficult to use this one than a longer bar spoon. So this is where our good bar spoon we chose earlier definitely comes back to help us out. And lastly, we're going to need our strainers. Now, this is a Hawthorne strainer and this is a fine strainer. I'll start with the Hawthorne strainer first. Now, there are a few types of Hawthorne strainers out there. I personally prefer the ones that just have a tighter coil on the top, because I feel that captures more. Let's say I've got lots of bits in my cocktail, I've got like some passion fruit seeds, or I've got lemon kind of rind or anything in my cocktail, I can capture it much more easily with a fine kind of spring on top. This is also pretty handy if you want to, like, let's say for example, whip up some cream. You can pop your spring into there. It'll help you whip the cream when you're shaking around. Just very much a handy kind of shaker, and the basic shaker you will need. But if you want to get into better cocktails, you might also want a fine strainer. This is especially handy when you want to make a cocktail like, let's say, a whiskey sour or a daiquiri or something, but you want it to be nice and clean. You won't want there to be any pulp, any little chips of ice or anything in your cocktail. So what you would do is you'd put your Hawthorne strainer up top to capture all the big stuff, and you pour it through the fine strainer and really get yourself a very clean presentation. But if you're just starting off, definitely the Hawthorne strainer, and then maybe you'll pick up something like the fine strainer later on. Speaking of things we might pick up later, these are going to be our nice to haves. These are going to be the things that you don't need to be a home bartender, but they definitely do help elevate the experience you're creating, the cocktails you're making, and just help you show off your skills that little bit more. We're going to start off with some dried fruit. These are some just dried citruses. You can buy them in most stores. Very handy for adding a little garnish, adding a little bit of flair to your cocktails. Definitely not necessary, but absolutely do make your cocktails look that little bit better. We've also got things like this. This is a larger juice elbow. If you want to juice something like a grapefruit, like a large, maybe a really large lemon, an orange, something like that, this kind of thing, very handy. And I do think you could get by with the littler one, the yellow one we had earlier. I think you can get by with one, but definitely the more you get, they've also got smaller ones. I think definitely this is a nice to have and not something you should be rushing out to get immediately. Then we got a little bit more niche tools. We've got things like a muddler, not going to be necessary in every cocktail you make. Some things like a whiskey smash are going to need a muddler. They're going to need you to muddle down like a mojito, some things like that. They're going to need you to crush up some mint, but you can do that with other tools in your home bar. A muddler though does make things a little bit easier. Speaking of things to make life easier, this is a speed pourer. Very handy, you'll see a lot of bars have it. You just pop it in the top of your bottle and you'll be able to pour out very easily into like a mixing glass or into a jigger like this. You can just pour very easy, kind of straightforward. You're not going to worry about spilling, you're not going to be worried about wasting any of your spirit. You can get it very exact. Also helps when you're making things like floats. It helps you kind of make sure you get everything right up top and not kind of overspill or over pour. It very helps you get things nice and precise. We've also got things like this. This is a julep strainer. You can absolutely get by without a julep strainer. You don't need this to make things like a mint julep. It just does make things a little bit handier. It's very easy to clean, especially if you've got lots of mint leaves that can get caught in like the little bits of the spring. This is a little bit easier to clean, but you can of course get by with a hawthorn strainer. If you're the kind of person who likes making things like sugar syrups or kind of fruit liqueurs, you're gonna need something like this. It's just a resealable glass bottle, keeps things nice and clean, keeps things nice and fresh. You can pop these into your fridge, keep things nice and fresh for a while. They're not too big, so not going to take up so much space in your fridge. You're not going to take up a huge amount of space. Also helps you make smaller batches and really nail down your recipes if you're starting to make things like sugar syrups or liqueurs or things like that. And lastly, we're going to talk about glassware. Now, glassware is one of those things that you don't need a nice glass to enjoy a cocktail, but having a nice glass definitely does help you enjoy that cocktail experience a little bit more, whether it's a martini glass or a margarita glass, hot whiskey glass, a Nick and Nora, a coupe. We've got some other ones, little fancier glasses like this, depending on the cocktail you're making. These do take up a lot of space in your house, because if you don't just want one, you'll want like 2 or 3, so you can make one for you, make one for somebody else. They do take up a lot of space, so they're definitely what I would say last on my list of nice to haves, because yeah, a glassware does help. It does make a cocktail look better, but ultimately if you're a home bartender and space is at a premium, focus on the things you need rather than getting lots of glasses, taking up loads of spaces that could be filled with bottles of liquor. So make sure you only buy things you need as you need them, help you build that collection. Yeah, there's some things you need to kind of kickstart your collection. It's absolutely the basics you need. But after that, when you start getting into the nice to haves, when you get into things like this, just kind of think about what you want. Are you going to be making martinis all the time? Do you need like 2 or 3 martini glasses? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no. If the answer is no, focus on getting other things that you are going to use much more often than that martini glass. And there you have it, from the basic essentials all the way through to the nice to haves. Those are what I think are the essential tools any home bartender is gonna need. So hopefully that list has helped you out. Hopefully that'll help you making up your own home bar at home. Or if you're gonna be buying a present for someone, help you decide on what to get them to help them start off their journey making cocktails. If you've liked the video, maybe you'll scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out cocktail recipes on Fridays, I put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays, and I put out fun little videos like this on Mondays. So if you want to see more, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you want me to talk about essential spirits I think you're going to need in a home bar, let me know down in the comments below, because I might just make that video. And until next time, sláinte.